Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Leafs Talk Live. Leafs Talk is live is back here Tuesday night. We got the usual crew. We got Rib, we got Clarky Snipe. Rib, how you doing tonight?
Good. I'm glad the crew is reunited, and we're back. Talk some Leafs hockey, and it's a party up in here for all you guys. Glad all you viewers could join us.
Clarky, how you doing tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining, and we, as you can tell by the title here, we're here to discuss the state of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think they're in a pretty good state at this point in time in the season, because the Maple Leafs start to the season at 7-2-1 is the team's best since 2011 when they had the same start. But that 2011-2012 team, the rest of their season didn't really work out. 35, 37, and 10. So let's hope to a more consistent season than that season. I think that the Maple Leafs are definitely more well-equipped than back in 2011-2012. But we've got some injury news, some updates for you. Alex Kerfoot left today's practice, and he's considered day-to-day with an undisclosed injury. Sheldon Keefe says it's something similar to what Austin Matthews' injury was when he missed a game against Calgary, or Edmonton, rather. And also, some better news. Jumbo Joe Thornton and Nick Robertson have both returned to practice, but they're not close to returning. So it's going to be exciting to see these guys getting back into the lineup. What are you expecting to see when they get back here, Clarky?
Yeah, that's great news. I mean, I thought they were going to be out for a lot longer, so to hear that they're close to returning to practice, I mean, that's going to be great. I know the Leafs are on a roll, though, so we got to really integrate them back at the right time slowly and see where they can play a role, because we also don't want to ruin the team chemistry that we got going right now. It's definitely a hot team, and we got to keep it rolling. We got to keep steamrolling other teams. So, looking forward to having them back, and I'm sure both of them will make the starting lineup when they come back. It's just a matter of integrating them properly.
Definitely, because we got a bunch of good stuff going with our lineup right now. Contributions up and down the lineup, but we have to integrate these guys back into the lineup. And Alex Kerfoot being day-to-day with an injury, this injury bug has hit us hard early on, and that's left our lines looking like this. The first line today at practice remains the same, Hyman, Matthews, Marner, and I think that it's better that it's left untouched. The second line, interesting. I think this is something we should talk about. Wayne Simmonds up on that second line. You think he's been deserving of that second line spot here? A shot at the second line with the big boys, John Tavares and William Nylander?
I could see Simmonds being a really good fit on that line. I think it's obviously been a very solid line already through, as you saw with BC playing on the second line earlier. And anyone we've seen skate with Tavares and Nylander so far this season has really benefited from it. So seeing how Simmonds is already integrated with this team, I can see nothing but good things coming from him moving up the lineup and taking on a little bit more of an offensive role.
Yep, I mean three goals in the last 4 games. He had a little 3-game goal streak going there. The Wayne train's really come alive here. It's all aboard, right? All aboard the Wayne train. We've been preaching that. Wayne Simmonds is one of the hardest working players in the NHL, and he's a great leader. And it's nice to see him get his opportunity up there on the second line.
Yeah, Leafs Nation is commenting. We got some comments here from Jack Trout. Simmonds, exclamation mark. Gotta love that. Jason says, I think so. Cody, yeah, for sure. Mike, yes. Carl, yes. Yeah, a lot of Leafs Nation is, very excited about seeing Simmonds up on the second roll. Golden Balloon, good to see some new faces in here. Always great. Keep commenting what you think. Keep shooting all night long. But yeah, no, Simmonds on the second line. It's going to be very interesting, and I think he could start to showcase what he can bring to the table in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Putting Wayne Simmonds on that second line, I can see him parking his butt out front, screening the goalie, and that will be really useful for that second line. He's going to add grit to it. That second line is definitely going to benefit from Wayne Simmonds being on there, and Wayne Simmonds is definitely going to benefit from playing with William Nylander and John Tavares.
And a better question, too. Who in this league is going to be able to contain both Wayne Simmons and John Tavares in front of the net at the same time.
I don't think it's in the Canadian division.
Nope.
Third line is left looking like this: Jimmy Vesey, Pierre Engvall, and Ilya Mikheyev. Now this line concerns me. I'm going to tell you why. Because this third line has combined for a total of 24 games played between the three players, and just 2 goals, both coming from Jimmy Vesey, 3 assists, and 5 points. That is a big concern. I like that. I mean, I really don't see Engvall being a center there. I think we should have put Spezza up there on the third line between Vesey and Mikheyev. I think that would have been more beneficial for two guys who've really been struggling to get on the score sheet as of late. I think that putting all 3 players that have struggled to get on the score sheet recently, that can really hinder what they can do.
Yeah, I think if any line has a lot to prove going into the next few games, it's this third line now. They're all fighting to keep spots on the team, some to varying degrees than others, and this is Pierre Engvall's time to step up and really show that he's got what it takes to crack this roster. Mikheyev needs to get a goal, and VC needs to keep playing the way he's been playing with lower quality line mates. And if he's capable of doing that, then I think he's really established himself on this team. And I think the hope here with this line might be that maybe Jimmy Vesey can be the line driver for them.
Clarky?
Yeah, I think you guys both bring up 2 different points. I think, Jake, your point about, putting less firepower together and less players that have a track record of success could backfire. And then Rib, also your point that this line has something to prove, and each and one of these players, even VC, who has had a couple goals, they all still have something to prove. And I think that it could go either way for the Leafs, but Keefe has to show that he can try out different lines. We've got a lot of skill, we've got a lot of depth on this team. So we're going to have to see nights like this where we have different players playing with each other, different skill sets and mixing it up. And we also have some guys out of the lineup. So, I'm not upset about this line. I think that we have to wait and see how it goes. And I think also, just to add on, a lot of Leafs Nation here in the comments is talking about Mikheyev's suit. They really think that he's got to step it up or break through. And I'd say, he definitely has been close. It's just about finishing now for him.
Definitely. Ilya Mikheyev, he's going to be a topic of discussion tonight because he's really, really struggled. He hasn't gotten on the score sheet yet. He hasn't scored a goal through 10 games. And last year, he looked a lot better in the start of the season. But I will say this. Ilya Mikheyev, there's been nights where he's stood out to me, but he just hasn't been able to capitalize on his opportunity. He's been a bit snake-bitten, but I think that the opportunities are going to translate to goals in the near future.
And I think you touched on it earlier. Mikheyev has had some nights where he stood out, and especially on the penalty kill, he's made his presence felt. And at the end of the day, this Leafs team is winning. And that's really what the most important thing is for all the players on the team and all the fans at home. The more this Leafs team keeps winning, regardless of whether Mikheyev puts the puck in the back of the net or not, he's obviously doing little things to contribute to this team. And I feel like his time will come. He's going to pot a few goals. It's inevitably going to happen. He's been all over the place, and we've seen him so close so many times. So I think we all just got to be a little bit more patient with him. But that's my take. What do you think, Clarky?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely reminds me of Kapanen these past couple seasons, where he's a player with a lot of skill, a lot of speed, and a lot of physicality, and really puts 110% effort each game. But it just seems sometimes, whether it's close in front of the net or passing, certain fine skill plays in the game, he's just not there yet. And I think he could get there. Maybe it's a thing of confidence. I'm sure, no doubt, he has the skill, he has the ability. It's just about kind of bringing it all together right now. But yeah, I think that all of Leafs Nation would love to see a guy like Mikheyev score. Not only is that good for him and his development and a player on the Leafs, but also take some pressure off the top guys. I know we're going to get into it, but we've really relied on the Marners, the Matthews, the Tavares, and the Nylanders of the world. So, we got a great record, but a lot of that record is to those players and the skill that they've had so far. So we got to keep it up and get contributions across the board.
That's a great point. We do need to get contributions across the board. Our top tier guys have been performing like our top tier guys, and that's what you need. But you also need the lower tier players to really step up in big time moments throughout the season. And that third line that we were just showing, they haven't really done that yet this year. Just 5 points in a combined total of 24 games played. That's not going to cut it. We need more production from our bottom six.
And I'm curious what you think, Jake, because the thought did pop into my head. If they really want to get Mikheyev on the score sheet and get him out of this slump that we've been looking at, is there not an argument to be made for him to stick in the top six and really get some quality playing minutes with those guys?
Yeah, I mean, you could do that, or you could put him with a guy like Spezza, Jason Spezza, have him centering that third line. I think that Spezza's been one of our best face-off guys this season, and he really has. Ilya Mikheyev, he just needs to get it going, and putting him with some players that are more capable of scoring, that might help. Instead of Engvall, I might have put Spezza there, but Sheldon Keefe must see something that he likes. Now we'll continue with the bottom six. Our fourth line looks like this. Nick Patan. Nick Patan finally getting in the mix. We have Tyler Boyd and Jason Spezza together. So I like this fourth line combination. I just wish Jason Spezza was up on the third.
Yep. I think that Brooks has a similar comment to you there. He's saying, I'd rather see Spezza on the third line center. He's been excellent in the faceoff circle this year. I mean, that's a great point that Spezza has really dominated the circle so far. And I don't really understand, and maybe you guys can shed some light on this, why Boyd would be playing center and not Spezza. But I think, again, with Boyd and Patan, they are two players that are showing they want to prove that they can play on the Leafs. And, you know, the opportunity is there for them. So let's see what they can do. And hopefully, again, I think that it'd be great to see some production off the fourth line, or at least some good back checking, some good defensive plays. Whatever we can get from all four lines is going to be really important against a Vancouver team we cannot take lightly.
Yeah, we can't take them lightly. And, I mean, Nick Patan, we haven't seen any of him yet this season. But for those of you that watched the blue versus white scrimmage, this is a guy who's fighting for ice time. And it was evident in that game. He was very noticeable in that blue versus white scrimmage before the season started. So I'd expect Nick Patan to have a good showing when he gets out there, if Alex Kerfoot's unavailable Thursday night against the Vancouver Canucks. We'll see if Kerfoot's available or not, but I think this fourth line's capable of doing some good things.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here is, honestly, when you're seeing guys like Nick Patan and Pierre Engvall get in the lineup more, and Boyd, they've got something to prove, as I touched on earlier. Ultimately, the season is a lot longer than what we've already been through, and come playoff time, the Leafs need to have this bottom six figured out and know, out of their depth guys, who's got the best chemistry together and who can fill the roles they need. So it's games like this coming up against Vancouver. Not to take any team lightly in the Canadian division, but they're not the top team in the division either. So Keith may be trying out a few players to see what they've got and see if there's anything they can bring to the team that they don't already have.
Well, speaking of bringing people up and giving some players playing time, there's someone who hasn't gotten any playing time, and obviously it's a little frustrating. And here's what Rasmus Sandin said word for word. I want to get your thoughts on it, guys. It's obviously a little frustrating. It was a very long time ago that I played a game, but we're hanging in there, having fun at practice. Rasmus Sandin had this to say. Clarky, can you give me your first reaction and thoughts to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to see a young guy that's, you know, really trying to develop his career, top prospect for the Leafs. That's frustrated. Clearly, he wants to be on the ice. He thinks he has something to contribute. And obviously, if he's an NHL player, you have to have that confidence. You have to have that hunger, that drive. And I would like to see Keefe, give the guy a chance. I mean, I know that the Leafs have shored up at least two of their lines with Hall and Muzzin playing well, and they're not going to take Brody and Riley out. So really it's between Bogosian, Dermott, Sandin, and Lehtinen. So out of those four guys, I think we're going to see more combinations throughout the year. But yeah, I think that, giving Sandin a chance is definitely something we should do. And it does not help his development if we're just going to keep him on the taxi squad the whole year. and not give him any playing time whatsoever.
Yeah, it's really, really been hurting Rasmus Sandin's development. I truly believe that. Rasmus Sandin said he bulked up in the summer, and he was playing with William Nylander, skating in Sweden quite frequently. These guys are friends, and I think we need to find a way to integrate Rasmus Sandin into this lineup. Whether it's Zach Bogosian or Mikko Lehtinen getting less playing time, it needs to be done. Zach Bogosian's never played a full 82 game season. Even with a shortened, condensed season, I'd expect to see some load management there. Mikko Lehtinen's 27 years old. It's not going to have quite the same effect that it would on a younger Rasmus Sandin's development if we sat him a couple games.
Yeah, I think Gordon Graham puts it perfectly here, that he would give Sandin a shot over Lettinen. And that's who I would draw to think that there is no reason that Sandin can't at least get a few games to show what he has. He's a young player. You want to develop him. And if the Leafs truly think that there is top 2 defenseman potential in Rasmus Sandin, he's got to need playtime to develop it. It's a fine line. You can't rush him along and give him too much responsibility. But with the good defensive depth Toronto already has, he does need to play. He doesn't need to be a superstar right off the bat. It doesn't need to be a top 2 role. But he needs ice time, and he needs to find who his ideal defense partner is moving forward. Because if the Leafs could really get him in a solid tandem with a more defensive defenseman that'll be able to cover some of his deficiencies and let him take more liberties on the offensive side of the ice, I think that's only going to help with his development.
Yeah, I mean, he's so young and talented that we really need to find a way to integrate him into this lineup. It's going to hinder his development in a big way, and we just don't want to waste a draft pick. Rasmus Sandin's I believe he's got elite potential. I think he has elite potential. Kind of reminds me of Erik Karlsson or Morgan Riley, even the way he likes to join up on the rush. I think he can be a special defenseman in this league, but we're really hurting his development right now. The taxi squad, you got to remember, he's not playing in the AHL. He's just on the taxi squad, sitting there doing nothing.
He's sitting. And, I think you guys bring up some really great points, and the comments do too. And I think Gordon Graham, he brings it up again. He says Bogosian has played well. Lettinen is the out. And I mean, I don't know. And posing this question to the comments as well as you two, what do you think the optimal combination? Think of, Sandin not having much NHL experience. What would be the optimal combination to pair him with a defenseman? Would it be, I don't know, a Muzzin? Or would it be a Bogosian? Would it be, who would you pair with? Forget, left, right. Obviously, that makes sense, and you need to match that up. But at the same time, I don't think you could put Sandin and Lettinen together. That would probably be a disaster.
No, I think it's got to be Sandin Bogosian.
And I would echo a little bit different there. I could see Sandin and Bogosian working, but I think if you really want to help his development and you want to see what he's got, put him with Muzzin. Give him a game or two. Give him something that's a veteran presence, a more than capable defenseman in the NHL that's going to be out there and be able to cover any weaknesses that he may have and really help him while he's getting his legs under him. I'm not sure if it's a permanent pair, but if you truly think he has the potential, that it's apparent to me, and I think Jake touched on this earlier, that he thinks he can be a really special player. Put him out there with a good veteran presence like Muzzin and really see what he's able to do.
Well, I see what you're saying, but personally, unless the only way I'm separating the Hall and Muzzin pairing is if I'm pairing them with TJ Brody and Morgan Riley. I want my best players playing with my best players. Rasmus Sandin, he has the potential to be one of our best players, but he's not quite there yet. Zach Bogosian, he's won a Stanley Cup. He's got a veteran presence, right-handed shot. He's not going to join up on the rush as much. I think that pairing could work, but I see your point with Jake Muzzin as well. We've got Sandin with Bogosian or Muzzin. Bogosian, a stable defensive guy in the third pair. Sandin with Bogosian. Jack Trout says Hall. That could be interesting. Sandin, Bogosian. Sandin is poised with the puck. He just needs some man strength for the front of the net and along the boards. And we haven't really seen it on ice yet, on full display, but Rasmus Sandin He claims he's been bulking up this offseason, and he's been practicing with William Nylander frequently in Sweden. So let's see it. Let's see Rasmus Sandin get some playing time here.
Yep. I think we all want to see it.
And the big thing I do think with Rasmus Sandin, what would you guys, and to the comments as well, to everyone, what do you think would be a successful, like let's say, first 5 games for Rasmus Sandin? What would you like to see to make you really feel promising about his future with the team?
Well, I'd like to see him do a better job clearing bodies in front of the net. That's something that he's struggled with. He's not really a big guy. We said he's bulked up. He said it himself. We need to see that come to fruition and see it on display. But, I mean, we know what he's capable of doing offensively. Let's just see him step it up a bit more defensively.
Yeah, I mean, those are great points. I'd say gaining confidence, obviously, he hasn't really played many NHL games. So if he can gain some confidence at the NHL level, really show that he's capable of being a defenseman. And then obviously, again, we know what he can bring offensively. You can get up on the rush, why not see that? A little Paul Coffey-esque. But, we'd love to see him contribute offensively, but at the end of the day, he is a defenseman. So I'd say first, playing the role of being a good defenseman. And also, again, I think a lot of his success will really depend on who he's paired with. And we've had a great debate so far. Some people saying Bogosian, Hall, Muzzin. It's really up in the air. But I think who you pair him with will be important too.
Definitely. It's definitely very important to pair this young player with a solid, reliable defense partner.
Yeah.
So let's talk about someone who's really made a difference out here this season. In games that Mitch Marner has tallied 2 or more points, the Maple Leafs are 6-0. I think this goes to show just how valuable Mitch Marner is and has been to this Maple Leafs team. What are your thoughts, Clarky?
Rib, how do you like that stat? That's a nice stat. I mean, it shows that Marner, top player in the NHL, he is bringing it this season. And, he's had a few more goals so far. I know that he's had, I think, 5 goals now, 6 goals. So that's great to see. He's trying to mix up, play a bit differently this year, be more of a complete player. And he's showing it. I mean, like, honestly, he is just contributing day in, day out. And the Leafs are winning. So I think what he's doing, keep it up. And obviously there's also the top guns like Matthews and Tavares. They've all contributed too. But I'd say Marner at this point is leading the charge, and you probably got to give him the number 1 star. That record alone is pretty great.
And I think the big thing with Marner is if he keeps this up for the full season, are people really having the conversation, is Mitch Marner overpaid? Because I think what we've seen for these first few games, he's bringing it to this team. The record speaks for itself. Mitch Marner has, perhaps, argument's sake, been the best Leaf player through this first part of the season, these first 10 games. And I think the biggest thing to take away from this is he is also showing what kind of special talent he has. It's not just Austin Matthews that's perhaps the 1A, 100% pro bono superstar. Mitch Marner is more than capable, if he plays his potential, to be right up there with him. And I think if we can see that level of play from Marner over a sustained full schedule, the sky's the limit with this team. If you could see Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner bring even close to their A game 90% of the year, this team can do scary things.
Yeah.
Well, our top guys contributing, that's what we need. And Mitch Marner has definitely been contributing even more than I expected. Mitch Marner, I think that this could be, like, we've seen him break out already, but this could be a breakout year on top of that. Mitch Marner, this year is going to be massive for him. I really think that Mitch Marner has the potential to win the Art Ross Trophy this year. I know it's early on, but Mitch Marner, he's been demonstrating that he can score more frequently. He said he wanted to take more shots, and he's been doing it, and it's worked out for him in big-time moments, too. A big game-winning goal against the Flames. And then we all know he has that elite playmaking ability. Mitch Marner, I think he's going to be in the running for the Art Ross Trophy.
And is it just me, or does it seem like Marner's got a bit more swag in his game, too? There's a little bit more pep in his step. It's like he's a little bit more confident in what he's doing on the ice, and you can see it coming through.
Yeah, we've seen that confidence, and it seems that this team. I feel like this team in general is a lot more confident. You look at John Tavares, William Nylander, and Mitch Marner, just to name a few of these guys that have stood out. I think that these three guys have all been playing with more confidence than ever.
Oh yeah, I think that the lines are really clicking right now, and I think Marner too. The one thing we have to really appreciate, he's such a great skater. He's such a great skater. He's got so much speed, poise, tenacity, and I'd say he's the number one right now. I'd say he's the number one player on the Leafs right now.
I agree with this comment down here. Do you guys agree that he has the potential to have multiple 100-point seasons in his career?
Yep.
Before this season, I would have said no. But based on what I've seen so far, I do think it's there. And if he can string together the consistency, I would have to agree with Nevin.
Yeah, I mean, I really think he is. I think he's got the chance to, for sure. Zach Hyman is the heart of the team. What do you guys think about how Zach Hyman's been playing this year? I think he's been an absolute workhorse. I think Zach Hyman, he's destined for a good year and a fat payout at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk all we want about top players, but what you see from Hyman day in, day out, he is definitely doing the things that, a normal fan doesn't really pay attention to. You're watching the game, you look at the stat line, you look at who's scoring the goals, who's got the dangles, the snipes, the speed, all that. But Hyman, he's clearing in front of the net. He's making plays to set up these goals. And I think one of the highlights so far, I remember in the Ottawa game, Matthews had a snipe, but he only got the goal because Hyman was in front of the net and causing disruption. I think that those little plays show that he's going that extra step. And yeah, you could make the argument he is the heart of the team. He's got a lot of passion, plays with 110% every night. And, he's a very motivating and inspiring player when you watch him on the ice.
And I think the big thing to watch out to here is I hope Hyman doesn't play himself out of his Maple Leafs budget.
Well, I mean, I think he wants to stay here. I'm not going to speculate on that. It's really, hopefully, I hope he gets the money that he deserves, but I also want him to be in the blue and white.
What's his contract right now? I'll look it up.
I'm not sure what his contract is, but what do you guys think, like, his contract range is? Monetary value.
What's his current one at, Joey?
He is $2.5 million. So I was gonna say, $3 million, $3.5 million for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking like 3.
Yeah, I could see him getting a nice bump to 4, but I think any higher than that might be the Leafs start asking questions. So we'll have to see how that goes when the season goes on. But from here on out, we got to focus on one thing and one thing only, and that's winning hockey games as this Toronto Maple Leafs team for this full season. The contract will take care of itself. But Hyman, every single day, is bringing the effort we need. And I think just take it day by day and see where the season ends up.
Well, got to take it day by day. And if we're doing that, we've got 3 games coming up. And they will be against the Vancouver Canucks. So, in 3 games against the Vancouver Canucks, who have been struggling to start the season, maybe an understatement, how many wins would you be content with? They're all at home. How many games do you want in 3?
Reb?
Well, how many do I want or how many must we get is a different question. I think all of us want all 3. But I think as long as we come out with 2 wins, that's something I can be content with. But any less than that is a failure.
Clarky.
Sweet. I want a sweet 3 wins. I think the Leafs can get it. I mean, you can't take Vancouver as a joke. They got some pure, young, raw talent. But come on. Leafs got to take these 3. 3 out of 3. Let's go. It's all at home. Let's get in a roll at home. And then we're going to go to Montreal after, which will be a tough game. Leafs got to take all 3 of them.
I'm with you. I want all 3 wins here. I've seen this team look really, really damn good through the first 10 games of the season. And now I've really raised the bar for my expectations. I understand the Vancouver Canucks. They've got a lot of potential for greatness on their young team. But I think the Toronto Maple Leafs need to take advantage of a struggling team in this North Division, and they need to take all 3 games, help build up that confidence even more, going up against big-time rivals, Montreal Canadiens, 2 games in a row against a tough team. Let's take all 3
Yeah.
against the Vancouver Canucks.
And I think the biggest thing this will show us, does this year's Leaf team have that killer instinct that hasn't perhaps been there for teams of the past? Because we saw it over the Alberta trip. This team did what was necessary to get the points they could, whether it was taking a point in an overtime game where they perhaps didn't deserve a point at all, and finding a way to win those other 3 games. If they can come out here and sweep the Vancouver Canucks, I think we've got to be starting to look at serious playoff aspirations for this team.
Oh, yeah.
Well, speaking of serious playoff aspirations for this team, that leads me to my next question for you boys. Are the Toronto Maple Leafs built for legitimate playoff run? I know it's early, but we've seen this team play 10 games, and we've kind of gotten the gist of what this team's capable of doing. Do you think that they're built for a legitimate playoff run?
Rib?
Okay.
All right, I'll take it. I think in teams of past, we've always thought Leafs had a chance with their top talent, but we've also known that we were not really balanced. And I think that this year, we've seen the most balanced Leaf team thus far in terms of having that top-end talent. The defense looks a bit more shored up. You got third and fourth line players that are really contributing in like Simmons and Spezza and Thornton when he was here, and Vesey. And there's a lot of players, even Kerfoot. I know we'll get into it, but a lot of people are down on Kerfoot right now. I'm high on Kerfoot, so I'll defend him against all you people. But anyway, I think the Leafs, I think that they're more built than they have been in a while. So for that, I'm going to say yes, but we don't know yet. We do not know yet. So it's so hard to say, yeah, they're going to make it to the 3rd round because we're talking about a playoff run here. We're not talking about 1 round. We're talking about 2, 3, 4 rounds. So I don't know. It remains to be seen. I have to say that for now.
Clarky, I don't like the pessimism here. I really don't like what I'm hearing. I don't know how you can watch these first 10 games and think that there's a team in this North Division that can beat the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Is it the North Division of 4 teams? Like, does every team
Every division has 4 teams.
Yeah, and the first 2 rounds are matched up with their own divisions. And I don't think there's any question in my mind that the Leafs are the Canadian team that's getting out of that. I haven't seen anyone that can match up. Calgary was perhaps the team that I thought, but Toronto showed what they're capable of. They found a way to win those games in Calgary. And I really, 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 you heard it here first. You can timestamp this. You can mark me on the quote. Heck, you can get a tattoo on me if this doesn't happen. But the Leafs are making it out of this Canadian division. And there's not another Canadian team that's going to beat them for those first 2 rounds.
Well, I believe that this team's so if that doesn't happen, you're gonna get a tattoo.
Take that in. Do you hear what he just said? He said if the Leafs do not make it out of the Canadian division, he's getting a tattoo. What's that tattoo gonna be? Leafs suck on your ass?
Let the comment section decide.
Yeah, I mean, we can have a fan vote or something. I mean, that's wild. Anyways, I believe that this team's built for a legitimate playoff run. I know it's early. I really believe that they are. I truly believe they're built for legitimate playoff run. The way that this lineup's constructed, top to bottom, and the depth all around, I mean, I think this team's special. I think it's different. You've probably heard this a lot from Maple Leafs fans, but I think this year's going to be different. I really do. You've got so many veteran leaders in that locker room now, and so many players that want to win, and then the younger players want to win for these veterans as well. I think that this energy in the locker room, it's different than years past, and I think this team's built and ready for a legitimate playoff run.
Well, that's a lot of words, but you did not back up what you said with I'm getting a tattoo. And I think the comment section is going to remember this. Everyone is remembering your comment, and you can't just make your bed and not sleep in it. So if it comes to fruition, I'll be the first to remind you. So you went off there. I think you got a bit ahead of yourself. I mean, I don't know. But at the end of the day, I get your points. And, you know, Leafs Nation, shoot your message in. What do you think?
Wow. I'm still soaking that tattoo thing in. All right, let's
We'll see when it happens. Mark my words.
hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it doesn't happen. You don't need that tattoo. I mean, go Leafs, right? How about Michael Hutchinson? Do you think Michael Hutchinson should start a game against the Vancouver Canucks? We play them 3 times in 6 days.
Definitely.
I think if I don't want to end up with a tattoo, then yes. Because we need arrested Frederik Andersen for later games in the season. And I think in a 3-game series against the Canucks, there's no reason for Hutchinson to at least not get a start, possibly even 2, depending on how he plays.
Yeah, I think he should get the middle game, give Frederik Andersen some rest, or maybe even the last of the 3 before we go to Montreal. Playing against the Montreal Canadiens, I think that's a more daunting task than the Vancouver Canucks, especially right now. Can't take the Canucks lightly, but we need to see what Michael Hutchinson can do, and we need to give Freddie some rest.
We have 4 games in 7 days. So if you think that Anderson's going to play all those games, you're out of your mind.
All right, this question here, actually, I was interested. I knew someone was going to bring this up tonight. I told you guys before the show, someone's going to bring this up. Do you guys think the Leafs need Tony DeAngelo rib? Do you think the Leafs need Tony DeAngelo?
As we touched on earlier, when you guys didn't want to break up Hall and Muzzin, you don't want to break up good chemistry on a team. And I don't want to speak ill of a player from another team, but there's been question marks about Tony DeAngelo all throughout his career and his locker room presence and what he really brings. And I think even if those are unvalid concerns and they aren't proven, you don't want to take a chance. You don't want to ruin what this Leafs team has. And I think they have enough defensive depth. You already see someone like Rasmus Sandin that cannot crack the lineup consistently. I don't think we have a need, and I don't think we gamble on it.
Well, let me tell you, the answer is no. We don't need Tony DeAngelo. I mean, he can be a top 4 defenseman, but we have so much defensive depth right now, and Tony DeAngelo doesn't really move any mountains for us. And like you said, that locker room presence, got in a bit of a fight with his goalie. We don't want that right now, ever. Let's not take the gamble. I don't think it's worth the risk. Clarky?
Yeah, I think Donnie has a good comment here. He says 3 teams tells you it's a proven problem in the dressing room. I mean, the answer is no for me. You don't want to bring in something that could cause more problems than be beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, no need for it.
And just to touch back on the tattoo point before we get off it, because I know it's going to come back if the Leafs don't manage to make it out. If that does happen, it will be live streamed right here on Maple Leafs Media.
Stop right now. No way. No way. You know we're going to all remember this.
Yes, I fully know. I've said my words already. If we're doing this, it's got to be live streamed.
I'm confident that the team comes out of the Canadian division, but you got to remember, Maple Leafs haven't won a playoff series in forever.
Well, I hope my words get backed up by this team. That's how confident I am in our Toronto Maple Leafs.
I love to see that confidence. I really do. But can you guys give me your biggest concerns throughout the first 10 games of the season?
Getting a tattoo. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, that's definitely a concern. Rib, what's your biggest concerns about this team? And everyone in the comments section, I'd love to hear your concerns in comments as well.
I think the biggest thing that concerns me right off the bat is twofold: penalties and durability. And I think that could be the Achilles heel of this team. If we don't have enough durability through this lineup, obviously you don't want to wish injuries on anyone. But we've already seen how injuries to a few key players in this lineup, such as Joe Thornton and Nick Robertson, and now you've got Alex Kerfoot, who's day-to-day, have started to shift up the lines a bit. And yes, Toronto has depth, but I don't think you want to be in a position in a playoff series where you're having to lean on Pierre Engvall to be a solid, constant contributor. So I think injury concerns are probably my biggest concern going forward. And we got to stay out of the penalty box. The penalty kill's improved, but if you take penalties against good teams, we saw with Calgary, with a team that has a really good playoffs and a really good power play, you can't take those penalties. And I think those are the big things that the Leafs need to think about moving forward.
Clarky?
Yeah, I'd say two things. I'd say one, the retro jerseys, got to scrap those. And two, penalties. I have to agree with you on that. I think that some of the penalties the Leafs have taken, whether it's like hooking, tripping, penalties that just don't need to be taken, I'd say that they definitely got to clean that up. And going into a playoffs, you never think that a team that's going to win the cup is taking penalties that they don't need to. So staying 5-on-5 or 5-on-4 is going to be key for the Leafs, discipline and, bringing it all together and having a team that defends well and isn't in those positions to take dumb penalties.
Well, I'm going to say two things. Penalties, I think we've all touched on it. The penalties have been a problem. We've been taking more penalties than I'd like to see us take. The other concern is our line changes. I know it sounds like a small detail, but it's got a really big impact on the game. And too many times I've seen, whether it's Mitch Marner or whether it's Zach Bogosian, just anybody in the lineup be out on the ice for more than 2 minutes at a time. And at the beginning of the season, we had the first 2 games of the season, we had too many men on the ice. Twice in a row that happened. Our line changes, we need to fix it up, do it more cleanly, and shorten our shifts because these are professional athletes we're playing against. When you're getting tired out there, it's going to show.
Yep.
Let's see what the comments say. Offensive zone penalties. There's definitely been a couple of those. Jack Trout, take the body. This has been a concern for a long time on this team. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, we got heavily out hit the first few games, and maybe it's because Ottawa and Montreal are more checking teams. But yeah, giving the bod, taking the bod well is going to be key for the Leafs down the stretch.
And I think that ties back to, yes, it's a common saying, but playoff hockey really does tighten up, and they let the guys play more. And ultimately, physicality does play a big part in some of those longer, grueling series. And what is the regular season, if not a practice for the playoffs? So this is what this Leafs team really has to start improving on, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's 2 weeks from now, whether it's just in time for the playoffs. That toughness and grit that we raved about in the offseason with bringing in players like VC and Simmons needs to be present.
Does. Jason Brooks says inconsistencies now playing a full 60 minutes. We haven't touched on this one yet. Surprisingly, none of us brought this up. I've said this multiple times in past shows that the Maple Leafs haven't dominated a game for a full 60 minutes. The closest is the Winnipeg game. We haven't dominated from minute 1 to minute 60, and we need to dominate a game and show that we're capable of not letting teams stay in games with us. We can really blow a team out. I'd like to see that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep a full stretch of a game where you're just the dominant team, especially when we're playing so many games. And yeah, the Canadian division has been lighter so far than what we've expected in some teams, but every team still has a lot of top-end talent. So I'd say that definitely that is a good concern. And Corey, he touches on it in his comment. He's saying, my biggest concern is consistency. We never know from one game to the next what the product is going to be on the ice. They tend to sometimes show laziness at times. So, that is really a good point. I mean, sometimes the Leafs are looking like the clear number one team in the division, and there's no debate. There's no reason to even watching the games. But then there's other times where it's like, what are the Leafs doing? Why are we playing like this? So I think that that's definitely a great point.
And I think I just saw Ron Keats nail it on the head, which is probably the biggest concern of them all now I think about it. If Freddie gets hurt, we're done. Do you believe enough in Jack Campbell and Michael Hutchinson that, God forbid, something happens to Frederik Andersen to carry this team?
I know that a lot of Leafs Nation does, but I don't. I don't believe in Jack Campbell and Michael Hutchinson to make the playoffs this year, or even make it out of the Canadian division this year. I believe in Jack Campbell. I think he's got a bright future, but you got to realize he's never been a starting goalie in the NHL. He's never started for a team. So this is right, Ron. If Freddie gets hurt, we're done. You need to give him some more load management. We gotta figure out some things here, because if Freddie gets hurt, it's a good point, Ron. We're done.
Yeah, and I think ultimately we can touch on all the inconsistencies we want with this team, but that's probably the biggest concern going forward for this whole season, is if Frederik Andersen goes down, barring a trade for another number one starting goalie like a John Gibson, I think that's the biggest kryptonite.
I mean, it's a what-if situation. I mean, that's worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. So let's just hope it doesn't happen. Simple as that.
Let's hope it doesn't happen. Let's hope.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood, everyone.
Oh no, that got my dog barking. Oh boy. All right, so that leaves me with another question. And Clarky, I'm gonna ask you this first. What Maple Leafs player has failed to meet your expectations so far?
That's a good question. I was gonna say Mikheyev, but I'm not gonna say him because at the end of the day, he's still played really good on the penalty kill, and he's brought a lot to the table. I just don't think he's finished yet. I'm gonna say two people. Can I use two on this question?
Go for it.
I'm gonna say Riley and Brody because I mean, just what we expect from them. We've seen both Hall and Muzzin's ice time take over in terms of being the number one pairing. We've seen a lot of endless mistakes, and we've seen some goals, some contributions on the offensive end, but we've seen a lot of endless mistakes by Brody and Riley in their own zone. And I think that needs to be addressed, that we need to say, this is supposed to be our top pairing. You guys are supposed to be our 1 and 2 on the team, so you got to start playing like it. And I think right now for me, that's failed the expectations. And that's also because the expectations aren't down here for a lot of players. For our defensemen, those two, it's up here. Like I see them as very high and very good players in the NHL. So right now I'd say that.
I'm with you there. I mean, those were two players I was going to mention, but I'll go a different route because I agree with what you just said. I really do. Alex Barabanov. He hasn't gotten a point in the NHL yet. He's kind of been invisible out there, to be honest. And I mean, it's not easy to transition from the KHL to the NHL, but I'd expect him to get his feet going soon. Reb?
I think it's got to be TJ Brody. He was expected to come in and right away make a big impact for Leafs Nation. And it's not to take anything away from what he's done already. Obviously, he's still acclimating to a new team, a new system. He's playing a slightly different role than he did in Calgary in the past. But when you sign a free agent defenseman that's supposed to be a solid top 4 defenseman, and you see some of the things we've seen out of the first 10 games from TJ Brody, it makes you question if that's the best use of that salary cap space. And I hope that he's able to prove this wrong as the season goes on and really adjust and help build with this team. But TJ Brody's been the biggest disappointment so far for me.
I'll say this. I think that TJ Brody, he can be a valuable defenseman. I just don't think he's the right guy to be paired with Morgan Riley. I think that you should put Jake Muzzin with Morgan Riley, but it really would hurt to separate Justin Hall and Jake Muzzin. And the only way I'm separating them is if I'm putting them with Morgan Riley and TJ Brody, respectively. I think that would solve a lot of issues that this defense has.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one pairing is working out very well right now in Hall and Muzzin, and that's why they're getting more minutes. But I don't know if the other pair is working out. And we still have a lot of time. It's only been 10 games. But we have to wait and see, and I think Keefe needs to continue to try and mix up the lines I know we've done on the offensive end. We need to do more on the defensive end. Good point there too about Sandin. Also, I don't know if everyone's been in here since the start, but yeah, Sandin should get a spot in the lineup. That's another question that we talked about earlier in the show, and it is a great question. There's a lot of question marks about should Sandin slot in for Dermott, a Lettinen, a Bogosian, because we know he's not going to take the top four out. We know that Riley, Brody, Muzzin, and Hall are locks on defense. So it's about those bottom two players.
Definitely. I mean, we've got so much defensive depth. We need to find a way to get him into the lineup. We talked about it a lot, but I think that it needs to happen. We need to see this guy get some damn playing time because it's going to kill his development, and we're going to look back at this season. And in the future, if we don't get Sandin some playing time, we're really going to have some big regrets. I really believe that.
And I think my thoughts on that are, if you're not going to play him, and you really don't think he has a spot on this team, why not use him as a trade chip and get a very valuable piece back? Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. This team is built to win now. It's either you play Rasmus Sandin and you think he has what it takes, or you use him and his high value to go acquire someone that's going to really help this team win. And him sitting there on the taxi squad is of no use to us. So either keep him and play him, or trade him for something valuable. But sitting in this limbo land, it's not doing anyone any favors. It's not doing Rasmus Sandin any favors. It's not doing the Leafs organization any favors. And it's not helping the Stanley Cup champs of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yep, absolutely. Something needs to be done with him. I mean, I want to trade him, but that might be better than letting him sit here and do nothing. This is an interesting point from Salmon. He says, Frederik Andersen's been the biggest disappointment for me. He has a point. He has an .892 save percentage, and it's his contract year, so I thought he was going to have a big year. I went on record saying that I think that this is going to be a career year for Frederik Andersen before the season, and I still think it's going to be. And that career year, that comes in the playoffs. Frederik Andersen struggled mightily in the playoffs with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think that if we give him some more rest, Frederik Andersen's going to be a factor for the Maple Leafs in the playoffs. I think he's going to have a big year. He's had slow starts to his seasons historically, but I think that you just got to wait it out a bit.
I'd say Leafs Nation, Salman, you bring up a pretty good point, but at the same time, first 10 games above the regular season, we got a great record. I'm not worried. I'm worried about the playoffs. And I think that's key this year, a rested Freddie in the playoffs so he can show us what he can do. And I believe he can do that. I believe he can be a number one goalie that doesn't choke in the playoffs. And he has a bit in the past, but also our whole team has. So I'd like to see what Freddie can prove to us in the playoffs. And that's going to have to require getting both Campbell and Hutch in for some games. So, I think it's too early to make a call on him.
And I think I'm going to say it once, and I'm going to keep saying it as the season goes on. Rest Freddie. A rested Freddie is the Toronto Maple Leafs' best friend. And we have Jack Campbell. We may not feel confident on him as a number one, but he's a darn good backup goaltender. And once he's back to health, you need to rest Freddie for the playoffs. And Michael Hutchinson will need to come in for some of these games here, especially if Campbell doesn't come back as quickly as we all think. And perhaps not steal the Leafs a game, but give them a chance to win the game. I think that's the best thing you can ask for a goalie coming in his position.
Frederik Andersen played the third most minutes in the NHL by a goalie last year, behind only Connor Hellebuyck and Carey Price. Those are three great goaltenders, and I'm happy we have Freddie on our team. But we need to see those minutes go down, so the more valuable minutes in the playoffs, he'll be rested up and ready to go. If this team's gonna make a playoff run, Frederik Andersen's got to be a big piece of it.
No doubt.
We had a question here from Corey. There's been some chatter around Travis Dermott being moved. Any thoughts on if that's a good move or not? Clarky, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know what his value is to other teams, so it's really hard to tell. Like, do you think Dermott, we can trade him? Maybe a swap deal for another like bubble NHL starter defenseman. I think that's about it. I don't know if we need any forwards or trade him for a pick or something. And also, again, also need to think about the implications about the expansion draft. And if Dermott, does it make sense to have Dermott on our lineup for him to get picked up by Seattle? I'm not too sure the logistics of that, but I think that at this point, I don't know. I don't see a trade for him. I also think that Leafs Nation is talking about Kerfoot being traded. I don't think that's going to happen. And Rib brought up a good point about Sandin. Will he be traded? So there's 3 players in my mind. Their names are being floated around right now.
And is that a move for the sake of a move? I don't know. I think it ultimately depends on what you get back, because durability is an issue with this team. We haven't perhaps seen it on the defensive side so much, but we've seen now a few forwards go down. It can never hurt to have that safety blanket. And do you think what you're going to get back in return for Travis Dermott is going to be more valuable than having more than 6 capable NHL defensemen that you can trust to step in at any given point? And I think that's the question we all have to ask ourselves.
Snipes, you brought up an interesting point about the expansion draft. That's something that we should definitely take into consideration. I could see him being picked by Seattle, but Travis Dermott, I don't see the benefit in trading him. Really, what are we going to get back from him? We're not going to get anything that we can value right now. We value that defensive depth. We value having depth in a year with so much uncertainty around it. Toronto Maple Leafs, Travis Dermott, I don't see any reason to part ways. Travis Dermott's paid just $870,000 this year. He's 23 years old, over 150 games of NHL experience. There's no glaring need to trade him, and the return, I don't think we're going to get a return that's worthy of trading him.
I agree.
We have maybe not Sandin, but Liljegren should be traded at this point. So yeah, I don't think that's. I like Liljegren a lot, to be honest. I think that he can be a valuable piece of this team in the future. He's a right-handed shot defenseman, and that's extremely valuable in the NHL.
And I think ultimately, back to the depth point, that's really what it comes down to. And I think just like here at Maple Leafs Media, how if we see a good question in the comments, we always get to it.
Yeah.
The Toronto Maple Leafs always get the defensemen that they need with the current depth they have. And I think that's important to remember, is that the depth is valuable. And that is really what we need to consider going into the playoffs. Obviously, we're in a pandemic-shortened season, and there's a lot of uncertainty. If one player gets injured or contracts an illness, that could make the difference for a team. And I don't think an insurance policy can be overlooked this year.
Yeah, I think you made a great point, Rib. And just to reiterate, here at Maple Leafs Media, we're like all Leafs fans. We believe in quality players and quality comments. So if you just keep sending your comment in over and over again and it's not that good, we're not going to pick it. So you know who you are. Stop doing it, because we're not going to pick your comment. There's a lot of other great comments and great analysis in here, and we're going to pick those comments, but we're not going to pick your comment because, frankly, it's not very good. So we're not going to pick it, and if you send it more and more, we're just not going to address you. So please stop. But, at the end of the day, I think that, Ribs, you make a great point. And there's also another great one in here about Vince Dunn for Dermott deal. Do you think that could happen?
It could happen, but what's the benefit? You're just getting another defensive piece for another defense. Like, you're just trading defense for defense. I don't see the benefit in it. I believe Travis Dermott's younger as well. I don't see any reason for it.
I think this is the one thing I was thinking about, and I think Chuck Fleet just touched on it. Travis Dermott or Sam Bennett. I don't know if that would work. I don't know how the salaries completely line up, but if you get a player like a Sam Bennett that can really be a driving force for the third line, and you can just plug and play and trust that he's always going to drive positive play for your third line, I think that's when you start looking at moving someone like Dermott. But if you're getting any less, you're not doing the deal. And I think you need a really impact driver. They don't necessarily need to be a top 6 forward, but you need a bona fide, solid playoff guy on the third line to consider moving a Travis Dermott.
I mean, it's something you could definitely consider. I know that Sam Bennett's been valuable in the playoffs. You've attested to that in the past. I just don't really see where he slots in on this lineup. Like, there's so much depth going around. That's the decisions ultimately are up to Kyle Dubas, but I don't know. I don't see it really happening. I don't see Travis Dermott being traded. It's a possibility, but why would you trade Travis Dermott?
Yeah, I mean, I think Solomon has a good point here, though. He's saying that, Leafs might need more grip. So Sam Bennett, late round pick, maybe that's great. But yeah, if you haven't already, smash the like button. Really appreciate all you guys being in here tonight and shooting in quality comments. I mean, we love your comments. I was just talking about a specific person there. But send your comments in, send your smash on the like button in. Hit the sub bell if you haven't already. It's been a great show so far, and we got some more discussions.
The Leafs need more defensive prospects because what defensive prospects do we have? I mean, Sandin and Lettinen, I think that they're definitely some top tier, not quite top tier, but the next tier down in the prospect
Liljegren.
ranking here. Liljegren, Sandin. These guys are going to be valuable. I really think that they're going to be valuable for this team in the future.
And I think if we're on the conversation,
hold on. Sorry. Topi Niemola.
if we're on the conversation of depth and potentially needing more players, I really think Corey brings up a valid point here with the trade deadline. That it definitely could be more interesting this year. Because given how you also have to consider the waiting period. We've seen it with the Patrick Laine and Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. Laine is just about to suit up for his new team, and Pierre-Luc Dubois has yet to suit up for Winnipeg. And I think that's going to play a big part also in trades going forward. Because if you are trading for immediate help, that's going to help your team right away. It's not so immediate. And you really need to consider that.
Yeah, I think that moves. I don't think the trade deadline day is going to be very big. I think that the moves are actually going to happen a week or two before that because trade deadline's late in the season, and that 14-day quarantine period that really takes away from the already minimal time that players have to get comfortable in a new locker room and environment.
Yeah, I think it's one of those little things you need to consider how this season is different. And do you guys think that it also increases inter-division trades? Because I'm sure it's easier to trade for players and with players that are within the same country as you. So do we see more trades between the Canadian teams, and do we see more trades between the East, West, and South American teams? That's another question we need to consider.
I'm wondering, too, if Canadian teams want to help other Canadian teams. Given that it's not like where you're trading from, let's say, Calgary to Toronto in the past, where you play them twice a year and it doesn't really have as much effect. But do you really want to trade, especially a talented player, to another team in your division that you're going to see another 7 or 8 times for the year? Especially when you're battling out for those playoff points and every game matters?
Yeah. You don't want to give someone in your division an extra step. That's a good point.
Well, speaking of someone else in our division, we've got a Montreal fan in here, and he brings up a point. Toffoli has 8 goals so far. Tyler Toffoli has been a valuable asset. Montreal Canadiens, they had a good pickup, and I think that that's a team. A lot of people underrated. We'll call it how we see it. I think a lot of people underrated the Montreal Canadiens coming into the season. What do you guys think?
They showed it in the first game, way back when in the season opener. That I think at the time we thought that Toronto was just potentially didn't come out and play their best hockey. And while I still think that that rings true to a degree, Montreal showed that they're more than capable. And they're a really strong team to be reckoned with a goaltender that seems revived and has a lot to prove this year. And they've been able to continue that all the way through so far. And if there is a team in the Canadian division that really does scare me in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, it's got to be the Montreal Canadiens. And not just because of the depth and how they can get scoring up and down their lineup, but when you have a goalie like Carey Price in a small sample size of one series, if he gets hot, I don't think it matters how much firepower the Leafs have. That's going to be a difficult series.
Well, yeah, that and the fact that this is the biggest rivalry in hockey. No matter what, these teams always come out to play. But you're talking a playoff game between Toronto and Montreal, there's going to be fireworks.
Oh yeah, I mean, we saw in the first game even it was a really tight game, and shout out to the Habs fans in here. I mean, it's interesting to be on a Leafs podcast. I know you only probably hear us talk about the Leafs, but we respect other teams, and Habs, they're a great team. They're a great team, and they've Bergevin's made some nice moves this offseason. There's no sense in denying it. He's made that Jake Allen pickup too. I think that adds a lot of depth to their team. And Toffoli, a guy that a lot of other teams overlooked, LA overlooked a bit, and he's come in and been a really nice piece. So it's a team we got to watch out for sure.
And I think I can almost draw a parallel in my mind too between Mark Bergevin and Kyle Dubas, because they've both gotten a lot of heat from both the NHL community as a whole and their respective fan bases. And so far this season, the moves they've made in the offseason have paid off dividends for both teams. And I think that's another thing to just step back and look at as a fan, even of the sport in general, and think, even if we think we know best, these guys have an intrinsic knowledge of the game. There's a reason they're in the positions they're in. And there's a reason that they make moves where others don't necessarily see value. And sometimes it pays off and other times not so much. But if a GM was to always make a move that everyone agreed with, would that move even be made? And I think Kyle Dubas has done a really good job addressing some issues that the Leafs had, bringing in Jack Campbell, signing a Zach Bogosian, bringing in Wayne Simmons. Obviously, he didn't fix all the issues this team had in one off season, but I think he did take a really massive step. And I'm curious what you two think on the topic as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, Kyle Dubas, he did an exceptional job this offseason, especially considering how little wiggle room, how little cap space he had, the flat cap situation. And I think that Marc Bergevin over in Montreal, gotta call a spade, right? Gotta give credit where credit's due. He made some under the radar signings, and that trade, Max Domi, Josh Anderson. I mean, he's been performing in Montreal.
Yeah. Also think that Romanov, that Russian defenseman they got, he's a really nice piece too. It looks really great. But I'd say, if we take a step back and think of both GMs, really tough markets. You're in Montreal, you're in Toronto. Let's face it, the two biggest hockey markets in the NHL. Most pressure, crazy media, crazy fans. So these GMs got to deal with a lot of noise, a lot of outside noise that they got to ignore that and focus on the inside, focus on making deals, making the team better. So I think both GMs got to hand it to them. And we've gone over some of the moves that Dubas has done. I think the Wayne Train pickup, amazing. I think also, solidifying the defense with the Brody pickup still remains to be seen how he pans out. But I'd say overall Dubas has improved this year. But both GMs are always going to be on the hot seat because we know that the media and the fans are crazy in both markets.
Definitely, and you know what? I think that Kyle Dubas, he's actually done a good job in Toronto. A lot of people have critiqued him on everything, whether it's the drafting Amarov, a smaller forward, which actually, when you stop and think about it, he's playing in Europe. You draft someone like Braden Schneider that a lot of us wanted. He's, at the time, there's the whole CHL is in jeopardy. So that can be beneficial, just knowing that player is going to be playing. And it's also much faster to develop a left winger than a defenseman. Kyle Dubas has fulfilled his promises of making this team a tougher team to play against this offseason. And he signed the core forward, whether you like the way he did it or not. Kyle Dubas has done a pretty good job of constructing this team. He's really put the core pieces together, and now he's just trying to finalize the puzzle, put the final pieces up and down the lineup.
Yep. Red?
So,
I like what they've both done. And I think in a very ultra competitive North Division, or Canadian Division as we've all been referring to it as. This small move, it's what's going to separate the teams that are truly up top. Because we've seen Edmonton's moves not necessarily pay off as well as they thought right off the bat. And we've seen Montreal and Toronto's moves pay off. And when you're playing the same teams for the whole year in one division, it's the small things.
Okay, so a question that's not related to hockey, and we're not going to give our big analysis or anything because we're not going to ruin the tempo of the show. This is a hockey show, but ladies and gentlemen, can you get, or I guess everyone in the comment section, you can comment if you want, but Clarky, Rib, who you guys got for the Super Bowl? I'm taking Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Rib?
You can't do him dirty like that. I know you don't like him. I know he's your arch nemesis. But are you really going against Brady?
Clarky?
I got to go with Rib on this one. I think he's the GOAT. It's going to be his 7th ring, and I think he's going to teach the young guy a lesson. And he's got more firepower, more weapons, I believe.
You watch. No team's going to beat that Kansas City Chiefs team. There isn't a team that can do it. Okay.
And that is a salty Bills fan for you, everyone.
No.
And that's enough of that.
That's not salty. That's me telling you how it is. I mean, if I was salty, I would say disrespectful things. I'm telling you that team is going to be a dynasty. So, what would happen if Freddie gets hurt for the entire playoffs? We would be well. I guess Rib would be getting a tattoo. That's what
Rib will get a tattoo.
And I think the Leafs wouldn't make it out of the first round without Freddie. I think that's
Guys, comment where you think Rib should get his tattoo. Because he said, to reiterate, if the Leafs don't make it out of the Canadian division, he will get a tattoo. So comment what you think that tattoo should be and where you think it should be.
Hopefully it doesn't happen for Rib's sake and for all of Leafs Nation's sake, but I guess that'll be the saving grace of getting to come back and look at him have a tattoo. It's an interest. He's got a lot of confidence in this team. I like it though. Mark Williams says, I will say TJ Brody will step up big later in the year. Big help for big playoff run. Rib, what are your thoughts on this?
They need it. They need TJ Brody to step up big and earn his money. And if he is able to, that's going to be a big revolution for this Toronto defense. And I would like to agree with Mark on this and say that TJ Brody, this is all just a learning curve. And I believe in him. I think he can figure it out. And I think we're perhaps a little too harsh to judge 10 games in. Obviously, with the shortened season, it's a little bit quicker than normal. It's not like he has the full 82 games to figure it out. But if TJ Brody is playing the same way in game 35 that he has been in the first 10, then you start to be a little bit more concerned. Until then, let him get his legs underneath him, let him learn the team, let him learn the scheme. And maybe you look at separating him and Riley. Maybe that's what's holding both of them back.
Yeah, I think that's something you definitely have to consider. Maybe give them a bit more time together, but it has been, at times it's been really hard to watch that defensive pairing. We've expected big things from it, but it just doesn't seem that chemistry's clicking. Something might need to change, and I think TJ Brody will step it up in a big way for the playoff run. We need him to. We absolutely need TJ Brody to be performing at his peak in the playoffs.
Yep, for sure. Definitely a key piece to this team.
So we got some tattoo suggestions here.
And just to address anything, my face is off limits. I'm not putting it on my face. I want a job in the future.
That'll ruin his game.
Jake did you dirty with this one. It should be 1967 on his chest.
Ooh, that's creative. I like that one.
Go Montreal Canadiens, and in his arm, where he can't see it. It should be 1967 on his chest. That's tough. Chuck says the Chiefs are gonna win. Jason says I'd say give them until game 15 or 20, then change the Riley and Brody pairing. I mean, that's a good point in the season, I'd say. I think that's really something that you can really examine a good body of work in 15 to 20 games.
Yeah. It's only been 10 games, right? So that's like not even 25% of the season yet. So once we hit 20, 25 games, we're getting close to the halfway mark. So we can make more analysis and more judgments on consistencies, player performance, things like that.
What weaknesses do the Leafs have to address? And for me, biggest weakness that the Maple Leafs have to address is their consistency. The Maple Leafs need to be dominant for full 60 minutes in a game, and the Maple Leafs, from game to game, they need to come out ready and prepared for the task at hand on any given night. All these teams in the Canadian division, we're going to be seeing a lot of each other. They need to really come out firing every single night in, night out. We need production up and down the lineup. Everybody's needing to contribute.
And I think for me, it's back to consistency. That's a big thing with this team, but a different type of consistency. A consistency to stay out of the penalty box when it matters most and not give these other Canadian teams ample power play time and give them chances to get back in these games. And I think discipline will be key for this team going forward. And both consistency and consistently limiting their number of penalties. Jason Brooks, as always, to the point with the issue at hand. Love to see it. What do you think, Clarky? Are you with your boy Jason, or you got something else in your mind?
I mean, there's no sense in trying to get creative here. I think that, again, Jason, you guys, what you're saying, consistency as well as penalties, those are two of the most glaring issues. Maybe a bit more physicality, having a bit more presence in the games, third, fourth lines, checking a bit more and, taking the hits a bit better, evening out that sense of the game. But I guess it also depends the matchup. I think that the toughness and grit was really more glaring in the first couple games against Ottawa and Montreal. But some of these Western Conference teams, they're just not checking like those two. So I'd like to see that. Get it on his hip. Oh, okay, yeah. So keep sending in where you think Rib should get it. I mean, I don't know. I'm a Leafs fan, but I would not back with the tattoo. That's a dangerous road to play, sir.
That is a dangerous game to play, Rib. That's a dangerous card you played. Salmon. That one hurts. Rib should get it. It was 4-1 on his arm.
Okay, that would be pretty funny. But that's a low blow.
What are you gonna tell you?
I was devastated. That hurt.
I already know what I want, and I think that's gonna, if it comes true, that's what Leaf fans will get a say in. But I've got one in mind, so we'll see what happens when we get there.
Interesting. So everybody, smash that like button. Hit the notification bell. We've been on here for an hour, 20 minutes, and I'll be back here tomorrow night for a Vancouver Canucks Toronto Maple Leafs preview. I don't know if either of these guys are going to join me, but I hope you guys will. So, the boys, we're going to play pond hockey this weekend. We'll get some good clips, some good footage for everyone. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that. But I'm looking forward to the next couple days. We're going to have a bunch of content coming your way. Guys, you guys want to give the closing words? Rib and then Clarky, and then I'll close it out.
Yeah, I think it was fun as always to come out here. I'd love to see everyone supporting the channel. Again, smash the like button, hit the notification bell so you always know every time Maple Leafs Media is live. And I think Clarky touched on this earlier, and I just want to reiterate it because this is a show by the fans, for the fans. Keep your great comments coming. If we see a good comment here on Maple Leafs Media, we will address it. And there's no need to spam if you don't think we're going to get to it. I assure you, if it's a good comment, we'll get to it. And we just want to make sure that everyone has an ample opportunity to be heard. And again, thanks for the support. Love to see the viewers coming back. Henny M, Mark, John Howard, Solomon. Love to see it. And that's what I'm going to say. And as far as the tattoo I have in mind, I'm sure that'll come up at a later date. I'm be more than happy to share the story behind it, and we'll see if it comes to fruition. But from here on out, we're just riding it out and hoping our Leafs can do what they do.
Clarky.
Yeah, I'd say we all know Ribs dug his grave tonight with the tattoo, and hopefully he's right. He doesn't get the tattoo because that'd mean that we're going to the Final Four. We're going to the playoffs. So let's hope Ribble doesn't get that. But again, yeah, Rib said it all. I'd just say, everyone coming in here every night, sharing your opinion, comments. We try to get to all of them. We're not going to be able to get to all of them all the time, but really appreciate the support. Hey, John Howard, I know you're saying, hey, Clarky. What's up, John? But yeah, overall, thanks everyone. And all I'd just like to say is we got hockey in these crazy times. So let's look forward to that and just stay safe, stay healthy, and look to see you guys on the channel soon.
Well, thank you, Rib. Thank you, Clarky. And thank you to everyone that watched this video. As I said, tomorrow, Vancouver Canucks, Toronto Maple Leafs preview. And there will be a post-game show. And I'll be doing a live reaction for one of the Montreal games in the near future. So there's a lot of content coming your way from Maple Leafs media, a lot of big things in the works. So looking forward to bringing you more content. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. Once again, thank you, Clarky. Thank you, Rib. Everybody, stay healthy, stay safe, and go Leafs go. Have a good night.
Go Leafs.